Video games and music. Two separate art mediums that come together to paint the full picture the creators want to convey. Developers of video games either create or choose what the players hear as they experience the game. A good soundtrack will elevate the game's theme and help the player better immerse themselves in the world. While a bad soundtrack can become distracting and even take the player's focus off the game and wonder, what the fuck is this? Today, I want to focus on music in video games that wasn't created for the video game. Or in better words, a brief dive into the history of video games and licensed music.
Excuse me, sir. I hope you aren't planning on using licensed music in this video.
Well, yeah, I was trying to do more of a show don't tell approach.
Well, in that case, we're going to have to show and tell these record companies you're using their music, and your share of profits on this video is going to have to go to them.
I'm not even monetized yet. But you could help with that. Wait, YouTube and copyright holders are making money off channels that can't even make money for themselves?
Oh, have a good day, sir.
Wait a minute, how do you get paid? Come back here, I'm not done talking to you.
I guess you wonder where I've been. I searched to find the love within.
Rewinding the clock all the way to 1981, the first game I can remember that included some semblance of licensed music is the original Donkey Kong video game. When starting the level and watching Donkey Kong take Pauline to the top, a snippet of the jingle from the Dragnet series plays. This melody has also been sampled in multiple other video games and songs. Take a listen to the original along with other examples in media. This next game on the list might be the worst gameplay-wise. Released in 1983, the arcade cabinet named after the band Journey was released. The player must control each of the 5 members to help them get their instruments back. Once you collect all 5 instruments, you get to play a show where the arcade cabinet would play the actual studio recording of the band's songs separate ways. Now, I don't feel like spending $2,000 on an original cabinet, so I borrowed a friend's copy. And I mean, just look at this game. The poorly digitized graphics, the terrible game design. This game sucks. This game was also pretty difficult. You only get 3 lives to get all the instruments, with all the characters only taking 1 hit before they have to restart the level and lose a life. The MAME emulator I played on also didn't have save states, so I had to legitimately beat the game. Also, during the victory show at the end, you're supposed to use this bouncer guy to block the groupies from stealing the instruments again, which I didn't know. So once I finally got here, I lost immediately and didn't even get to hear the song. I don't know if the emulator can even play the track, but I did notice a song file on the download, so I'll just add it in post for you to hear. Moving forward a full 6 years, the next notable game soundtrack I could find is Xenon 2, released in 1989. Xenon 2 Mega Blast may be your standard shoot-'em-up game, but what makes this game stand out to me is the intro music. Somehow, the audio team was able to recreate the song Bomb the Bass to a pretty accurate degree, despite the hardware limitations of the Amiga. While doing research for this video, I had no idea this game even existed. An isometric beat-em-up starring Michael Jackson. This arcade cabinet was loosely based off the film with the same name, Moonwalker, specifically the Smooth Criminal section of the film. Similar to this part of the movie, your goal was to save kids. No, really, you would save kids. And sometimes Michael's pet monkey named Bubbles would show up and he would turn you into Mecha Michael Jackson. Also at the player's disposal is a screen nuke that makes everyone dance to death. All in all, this game's actually pretty fun. The chiptune renditions of Michael Jackson songs are actually really good too. Alright, now we're getting into real examples of studio recordings being used within games. 1994's Road Rash, released for the 3DO, will be the first entry I could find that had full studio recordings of licensed songs within it. Road Rash was a pretty fun racing game with some really cheesy live action cutscenes. The console this game released for, the 3DO, cost $699 on its release in 1993. That's equivalent to almost $1,500 today when adjusted for inflation. That being said, this game does run incredibly smooth and have decently quick loading times for a 30-year-old game. The soundtrack is some of Soundgarden's absolute best, like Also released the year of 1994 was Midway's Revolution X, a light gun shooter arcade game starring Aerosmith. This game was a quarter muncher for sure. You're constantly getting hit from unavoidable enemies, while the enemies are some of the worst examples of bullet sponges I've ever seen. One thing I did like about this game was the multiple paths presented to the player that they could shoot to decide which direction to explore or level to play. An interesting Easter egg added to the game was occasionally after big explosions, the band's lead singer Steven Tyler will yell "Toasty" in a reference to another little-known Midway game titled Mortal Kombat. This game features snippets from many of Aerosmith's most famous songs. For example, Sweet Emotion plays during the level select screen. Along with the music, the game itself is pretty forgettable, except these live action cutscenes. These are great.
These guys are maggots. They're putting chemicals in all our food.
In 1999, Sega released Crazy Taxi, an arcade cabinet later ported to home consoles. While driving customers all around the town of what I think is supposed to be San Francisco, you can hear a few music tracks from The Offspring and Bad Religion. The gameplay revolves around picking up customers and dropping them off, which will increase the total time remaining and earn the player cash. To this day, I can't hear this song without thinking of this game. Apparently, a remake of the game is in the works currently, and I'll be betting this song is used for the trailer. Also making its franchise debut in 1999, the first Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was released. The sequel will be released a year later in 2000, and a remaster of both games with most of the original soundtracks intact was released in 2020. The original two games are considered landmark releases for their fun gameplay and high replayability along with their great soundtracks. The player would hear a shuffle of random songs while skating through a level trying to complete objectives. Some of the more memorable tracks are In the year 2001, ATV Off-Road Fury was released. I remember having a fun time with this game as a kid, and playing it now it can still be fun. While either racing or exploring a level in freestyle, you'll hear songs by Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Primus. On a side note, Spoon Man in this game is spelled with 2 words instead of 1, and some of the songs seem oddly sped up. Also released in 2001 was a downhill snowboarding game by the name of SSX Tricky, with a fitting use of Run DMC's Tricky used throughout the game. Man, there was a lot of good sports-themed games with good soundtracks released around this time. Later in 2001, a little-known series by the name of Grand Theft Auto would make its 3-dimensional debut and start this series down a path of having a gaming experience that is deeply connected to its licensed music soundtrack. These games would be a lot less memorable if there was no music to listen to while driving, considering that's the majority of where you spend your time. While driving through Liberty City obeying all streetlights and speed limits, you can hear songs originally created for the Scarface movie. Now this game right here is definitely in contention for best video game soundtrack, licensed or not. GTA Vice City improved upon its predecessor in pretty much every way, but especially the amount of music included. Rockstar went with a more is more approach without sacrificing quality. Every radio station in this game has absolute top tier songs like
I bought a toothbrush, some toothpaste, a flannel for my face, pajamas, a hairbrush, new shoes. You're out of touch, I'm out of time, but I'm out of my head when you're not around.
and that's just to name a few. The voice actors, setting, tone, and game design will always be top notch for me. 2 years later, Rockstar did it again with the release of GTA San Andreas. While I do believe Vice City's soundtrack is better, San Andreas still has a phenomenal soundtrack. The in-game radio stations are actually pretty diverse too, with Radio X having alternative songs like while KDST has classic rock classics like and this game even has some country songs.
Well, I love a rainy night. I love a rainy night. I love to hear the thunder, watch the lightning when it lights up the sky. You know what I mean?
2005 marked the start of the plastic instrument phase that took the gaming market by storm. In these games, music is the main focus. Harmonix distilled the complexity of playing a real instrument down to 5 buttons and a strum bar, and the world loved it. Harmonix and Activision went on to create numerous games in the following decade. With so many releases in a relatively short period, the developers oversaturated the market, effectively killing the plastic instrument industry. Nevertheless, these games introduced a generation to a whole new sound and genre of music. The spirit of these games lives on with a fan-made PC version called Clone Hero, which has its own dedicated community. These games helped shape my music taste as an adolescent, which definitely impacts what I enjoy to listen to today. In 2006, 2K Games released the first-person shooter titled Prey. This game was seriously underrated. A pseudo-horror puzzle platformer, there was something for everyone in this game. During the game's prologue that takes place in a bar, aliens begin abducting people and objects nearby. During this sequence, the diner's jukebox plays this track, which perfectly sets the tone for the game going forward. It's pretty unbelievable that GTA 4 is as old as it is. This game really still holds up today. The game's intro song Russian Connection is valid too. Returning to Liberty City of Grand Theft Auto 3, the entire city now has much more detail and is set in a more modern time period. This game's on-disc songs included tracks like This game eventually added DLC, which added some songs too, like The Lost and the Damned adding
Oh, mama, I'm in fear for my life from the long arm of the law.
and The Ballad of Gay Tony having The Ballad of Gay Tony also had this awesome track that plays if the game is paused for a certain amount of time. Also released in 2008, Fallout 3 was the first three-dimensional release for its series. The player's character had a Pip-Boy that they could tune into various radio stations with, and one of them played this now iconic track.
I don't want to set the world on fire.
The Fallout series continued this tradition going forward, with tracks such as
To the town of our free rode a stranger one fine day. They call me the wanderer.
With GTA 6 on the horizon, I have been wondering what the in-game soundtrack will consist of. The most recent entry in the series, GTA 5, was released in 2013 and had a really solid soundtrack. Standouts for me include
Fuck that.
I'd also like to throw out an honorable mention for Saints Row 4 making fun of Armageddon with this Aerosmith sequence. Released in 2016, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare actually had a good amount of licensed tracks, which I believe was a first for the series. I know Black Ops 1 had a couple of licensed tracks, but I've got a whole deep dive video coming for that, so I'll save that info for then. Back to Infinite Warfare. This game had a zombies map set in an 80s theme park that included David Hasselhoff as a DJ. This is such a wild description of the map, but it's all true. Hasselhoff would play 80s classics such as
Wanna see you with it, show the treat you right. Give me just a minute of your time tonight.
Gearbox released Borderlands 3 to average to positive reviews. The gameplay in my opinion is as good as ever, but the story writing really fell flat. It's kind of sad that the first game in the series has one of the best game intros and use of licensed music that really sets the tone for the series. While Borderlands 3 we got, well, at the end of the game, Lilith sacrifices herself. As she seals Elpis to prevent it from destroying Pandora, a Firehawk sigil lights up the sky and the credits begin rolling. As this happens, the song Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys plays. Now I enjoyed Borderlands 3, I enjoy Alicia Keys' music, but in my opinion these two don't go together at all. I remember audibly sighing when the song started playing. Just because the lyrics say this girl is on fire and that's what's literally happening in the game, doesn't mean it fits the tone inside a Borderlands game. In my opinion it was way too on the nose and cheesy and really ensured that this game's already mediocre ending would have absolutely zero emotional impact on me. What's even worse is the song that plays after this would have been a much better pick. Trouble by Cage the Elephant. The series started with them and could have ended with them. To me, an original piece would have fit better in Girl on Fire's place, and if they really wanted to use a licensed track, I would have chosen something like this.
Run towards the fire. Sanctuary's yours, Ava. Be ready.
What does Lilith think she's doing?
And I think my spaceship knows which way to go.
That could kill her.
Tell my wife I love her very much. She knows. Ground control to Major Tom. Your circuit's dead. There's something wrong. Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear? Am I approaching?
The game carrying the most licensed music influence today is definitely Fortnite. What began as just a few V-Buck purchasable emotes with music tracks from popular artists, the amount that has been added over time is impressive. Whether or not you enjoy Fortnite's microtransaction-heavy user interface, the influence of the free-to-play Battle Pass culture can't be overstated. Even Fortnite's competitors, like the original Warzone, added music tracks you could unlock for use in its vehicles through its own version of the Battle Pass.
With a hip hop, the hippie to the hip, the hip hip, the hobby, you don't stop the rocket to the bang bang, boogie say up jump the boogie.
Fortnite's music theme has evolved into much more, with Fortnite's recent update adding a Guitar Hero Rock Band type mode developed by Harmonix, the original creators of Guitar Hero. This mode has a rotating set list of tracks, with many licensed tracks and some originals. I enjoy the mode as a whole, but really think more depth needs to be added. I would personally like to see how other players in the band are doing live, like how multiplayer in Rock Band is. What may have started out as a rough relationship, the current connection between licensed music and games is undeniable. During my research, I came across a thread of someone doing similar investigation all the way back in 2005. It's interesting to think that even back then, people were really starting to take notice of music and gaming's relationship. I know I didn't cover every licensed music track in every game ever, purposefully skipping games like 2K, Madden, and other games where a single track's appearance didn't have too much of an impact on either the game or the song's influence. But there is a 100% chance I'm missing an important game or two. If you know any important instances of licensed tracks in games that I missed, let me know in the comments. Unless it's Metal Gear Solid 5, I have an entire video planned for that game. And to those of you wondering where the next Call of Duty video is, don't worry, I'm working on it. I just want to build an audience who enjoys all aspects of gaming, not just Call of Duty. I will review every Call of Duty eventually, but I will also work on other game series and even your suggestions. So don't hesitate to leave a comment for what you would like to see. As always, have a good day or night. Whenever you're watching this, I don't really give a